Hello. Let's have a conversation about the Earth, whether it is round or flat. I think a lot of the debate that's going on between the flat earthers, if you will, and science, or people who, astrologers and other people who believe the Earth's round, um, is a strange debate, really. I think most of it centers around the word firmament, firmament, and it's an old French word, firmament, but it is borrowed from Latin, the Latin firmamentum. It applies to something firm, you know. So it be a firm, a mint. So it applies that something is firm. And ironically, throughout scriptures, we run across the same situation and the same problem with other words being used, translated from the Hebrew through intermediate languages such as Greek, Latin, German, Old English, into English, and then into American language. And some of it, I'd say most of it, is probably just in errors stemming from misinterpretations, perhaps not understanding the Hebrew culture, Hebrew language, Hebrew customs, traditions, so forth and so on. The Hebrew mind, Hebrew alphabet. And most of that is in conjunction to idioms, Hebrew idioms, metaphors, parables, maxims, figures of speech. And some of it, unfortunately, is probably just plain, some of these words have just been plainly substituted for deceitful purposes or an alternate agenda of dishonest people. I mean, perhaps people who are trying to influence others into believing the way they believe. And some of it may be stemming just from just straight up evil people that's trying to change the word of Yahuwah and deceive people, keep people from learning truth. You know, wouldn't doubt it. But I've done quite a bit of studying and researching and reading. Some of you may have noticed that I haven't done any videos in a short time. It's been a while, and I've been doing a lot of reading and talking to people and studying about this on different websites and so forth and so on. There is a flat Earth society out there that people have went to the extreme, radicals, even going up into rockets, self-made rockets, propelled rockets, homemade. Try to get themselves up high enough where they could see that the Earth was flat, like see Mount Everest or something. Because if the world was just totally flat, common sense says if you got up to a high enough elevation, you should be able to see Mount Everest and some of the other tall mountain ranges. Uh, and of course, some people have been killed doing these type of acts, and which is unfortunate, of course. And So it's a real thing. It's a real debate, and there's people that really do believe it. Now, my take on this, and I'm not going to get into this too much. I just want to kind of talk about this word firmament, and I think that's where most of the deception or the possibly the error is coming from is that word firmament. Okay, and I mean, there's people that really, are really serious and really believe in this, and so I mean, I think it's worth discussing a little bit, but like I said, unfortunately, a lot of different words and subjects in Scripture are just because they're misunderstood. I mean, you have to realize that our translations aren't perfect, people. I know you've been taught that they are. Most of us have been taught that they're inspired words of Yahuwah. And of course, if they are inspired, then there can't be no error in there, could there? But we all know, at least most of the Netzarim know, that there are a lot of errors in the Scriptures. Okay, most of them because of intermediate languages. I mean, if you go and translating from one language to another language to another language to another language to another language, back over to that language, back to that language, back over to this language, back over to this language, to this language, and then you get to this language and you do 300 more different translations, try to reword it where it makes more sense. I mean, no wonder there's errors. That's why it's a translations, and especially study Bibles. A lot of those are just men's opinions. Their private interpretation of what certain passages mean. And of course, they've lost along the way many of the true meanings that apply to the passages, because a lot of them were idioms, metaphors, parables, maxims, figures of speech that was taken out of context because they weren't intended to mean what they were saying literally. And people were taking them literally and writing them down or copying them or translating them in a literal sense when they were no more than a mere idiom. And even the idioms that did get copied correctly, a lot of people, when they read the Scriptures, they interpret the idiom as literal. And that's a huge problem. Huge. So anyway, I think that I believe the homonyms, the homophones, and homographs are also very much at the center of the confusion and the misunderstanding or the errors involved here. Especially the homonyms. I don't know if people realize that, but there's homonyms in every language, and especially the English language, jam-packed with them. Matter of fact, there's so many that there's thousands and thousands of jokes about them floating around. So, I mean, just a couple jokes real quick, lighten up the mood here, and then we'll get deeper into the study. One joke is, why did the king draw straight lines? He was a ruler. Why did the cat get scared after he climbed the tree? It saw the tree bark, or it heard the tree bark. What did the ducks get at the restaurant when they were done eating? A bill. So there you go. There's just a few jokes, but I mean, there's thousands of them. Our language is anything but perfect. It's almost a mess, really. I mean, if you really study about the English language, it's a mess. But homonyms, homonym, homophone, and homograph. What are they? Let's get a look at it because it's important to know what they are because it creates a lot of problems really. Uh, Homonym is a word that sounds the same as another word but differs in meaning. Okay, like bark and bark. So bark. It depends on the context. That's why you have to read the context to understand. But the bark on the tree and bark, the dog sound bark. A dog barks. Okay. Phone is a word that is produced the same as another word, but differs in meaning and is spelt differently. Okay, so it sounds the same, but it has a different meaning, but it's also spelt differently. Where a homonym is pronounced the same way, but it has a different meaning. It's spelt the same way with a different meaning. And homographs are words with the same spelling but have more than one meaning. Have more than one meaning. A good example of that one is a bow. If you think about a bow in a girl's hair, bow, an arrow, okay, spelled B-O-W, and then bow, B-O-W, spelled the same way, but now all of a sudden it says bow. Bow of a ship or bow down to your master, okay, but all four of those are spelled exactly the same way, B-O-W. You see that? And keep that in mind because that's going to be the heart of this discussion here that we're going to be looking into when we get to that word firmament. So I think that's fairly easy to understand what's going on there. So, some of the homonyms would be a couple examples is mean and mean, right and right, ring and ring, and that's all spelt the same, sounds the same but means differently. So the homophones brake, like I need a brake, and brake when you stop your car with your brake. Spelt differently, they sound the same and they mean something differently. Okay, buy and buy. You want to buy a new coat, you walk by the window. Sight and sight. He was cited for his bravery. A site has been chosen for the new building. Spelled differently, sound the same, mean something totally different. Seller and seller. We don't use our coal cellar anymore. She is a flower seller. Spelt differently, sound the same, mean something totally different. So that's, I think you get the idea of that. Band and band. The band was playing an old Beatles song. She always ties her hair back in a band. Bats. I'm afraid of bats. At his first time at bat in the major leagues, he struck out. Bat. Spelled the same, sounds the same, means something totally different. Depends on the context you're using it in. Okay. So I think we were getting it, but let's do just a few more. We got to get this in our head. This is a huge problem. Ring, ring. R-I-N-G. Sounds the same, spelt the same. What a beautiful ring she is wearing. The children sit on the floor in a ring. Rock, rock. He plays in a rock band. To build the tunnel, they had to cut through 500 feet of solid rock. Spelt the same, sounds the same, totally different meaning, depending on the context it's used in. Okay? Rose, rose. She has a rose garden. I never promised you a rose garden. He rose up. You know, on and on. There's a lot of them. So, point. He's just saying that to prove a point. Yes, I am. Everything seemed to point in one direction. See? Same word, exactly same spelling, means something different depending on the context. I have a 12-inch ruler. Ruler. I have a 12-inch ruler. King Tut was a firm but a just ruler. See? Saw. Tie. Trip. Wave. You know, wave goodbye, wave of the ocean. You know, I mean, you can put them in any sentence you want to. Just, you know, it just goes on and on like that. So I think we're getting the point here. So some of the homophones are like add and add. Okay, AD and ADD. So it sounds the same, spelt differently, and has a different meaning as well, which you could see in the context or the sentence it's written in, but it's spelt just slightly differently. AD and ADD. Add, she ran an ad in the newspaper. Add, he was a mathematician who adds and subtracts. You know, add, he added more money to the bank. All and all of everything, all, and all, like a leather all, spelt differently but sounds the same. Allowed and allowed, she allowed him to come over for dinner. The kids, that was allowed, they spoke aloud. You know, so arc, you know, the welder was an arc welder. He used arc, he was an arc welder. Or Noah's ark. Arc sounds the same, spelt differently. BB, could you be quiet? The bee makes honey. BE and BEE sounds the same, don't they? But totally two different words. See that? It's two different. Doe and doe. Doe the deer, female deer, and dough to make bread, to bake bread with. They sound exactly the same, they're spelled differently, and they're totally two different words entirely. Doe and dough. See that? Flour and flour. Flour that you make bread with. Flour that you smell. Grows out in the field. Spelt differently, sounds exactly the same, and means two totally different things. So, you know, hopefully that's it. Then we'll just stop there. I think you're probably getting it now. But very important, very important to get that. So, well, why are we going through all this little English lesson here? Because it's very vital to, I believe, the confusion between what's written in Scripture and what the flat earthers feel is what they're basing their belief on. Really, is what I can tell from what I've been studying and reading and how I'm talking to people and listening to what they say. It all sounds logical to me. Now, of course, in Genesis, it says that, and Yahuwah said, let a firmament come to be in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And Yahuwah made the firmament and separated the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And Yahuwah called the firmament shamayim, which means heavens. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. So if we jump down to verse 14, it says, and Yahuwah said, let lights come to be in the firmament of the shamayim, to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and appointed times, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the shamayim, to give light on the earth. And it came to be so. And Yahuwah made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and also the stars. So the sun is the light ruling the day, the greater light. The lesser light is the moon and the stars ruling the night. So the nighttime isn't total darkness. The nighttime isn't the abyss or total darkness. It's just a lesser light, period, within the one day. All right? So people try to separate the day and the night like night doesn't count. So if you say, say the Sabbath day, for instance, if you're going to rest on the Sabbath day, as commanded in the fourth commandment, Nazarene believe and teach that the Sabbath starts at evening. After you see 3 stars come out, that begins the Sabbath. And those stars and the moon are light. It's a lesser light. Okay? Maybe they called it the watch hours. Okay? Nevertheless, it was still, starts in the evening, goes through that evening up to the nighttime, where's the moon and the stars, the lesser light period of 12 hours, we'll say. Not exactly all the time, but we'll just say that. And then morning comes, and then the bigger light comes out, the greater light, the sun, and lights everything up brighter. Okay, well you can't see the lesser light. You can see the moon, but with the stars you can't see, and and then that goes until the next evening, and then that's the end of the day. And there's a lot of times there's a play on words there. If you think about play on words, what I mean by that is simply this. If somebody says there's 7 days in 1 week, or if somebody says there's 30 days in 1 month, or 365 days, or 364 days in 1 year, whatever. All right. Does that exclude the nighttime? The 12 hours of darkness? Perceived darkness? It's not really darkness. It's not the abyss. There is a light. There's a lesser light ruling the dark. The nighttime, those 12 hours, it's still day because it's ruled by light. It's ruled by the lesser light. There's a greater light and a lesser light. You see that? It's not total darkness. It's not the abyss. It's not the outer darkness at all. It's still daylight. It's still got light in it. It's not total darkness. There's still the stars and the moon. Matter of fact, on a full moon night, when it's a full moon, any military person that's been in the military can tell you, or any hunters. You can go out there under a full moon. You can see just about as good as you can in the daytime under a cloudy day. You really can. It's bright out there under that full moon, out in them woods, fields. But anyway, so it's a lesser light, and that makes the full day. So you say 7 days in 1 week. Are you just counting the greater light, the 12 hours of the greater light? Well, that would only be 3.5 days if you did that. See what I'm saying? You can't leave out the lesser light. It's not really darkness. It's just a lesser light. It's called the night. Yahuwah called it night. He called the greater light day to rule over the day, and the lesser light to rule over the night, and also the stars to rule over the night. And Yahuwah set them in the firmament of the shamayim, heavens, that's an S, that's plural, to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. What darkness? The outer darkness. Not from day and night, except the light from the moon, the stars, the sun separates us from the darkness. To rule over the day and over the night, he gave the lights to separate the light from the darkness. What darkness? The abyss, the outer darkness, beyond the firmament, beyond the stars and the moon and the sun, beyond that, where there's total darkness, the outer darkness. Get it? That's what the demons were afraid of when they asked Yahusha not to cast them into the outer darkness. Okay? Throw us into the swine instead, and the swine ran over the cliff. They'd rather been in the swine and run over the cliff and die, and the swine die with them in, than to be thrown into the outer darkness. Okay? They didn't want to go there. They didn't say, he didn't say, I'm going to throw you into the nighttime. They would say, okay, cool. No, he didn't tell them that. He didn't say, I'm going to throw you into the night where there's less light, where the lesser light rules. No. He said, I'm going to throw you into the outer darkness, where there is no light, period. The abyss. And they said, oh, don't do that. Put us in the swine instead. See that? There's a big difference there. You guys are getting them mixed up. People getting that mixed up. And Yahuwah saw that it was good. He saw it was good. Okay? The lesser light and the greater light ruling over the day, the lesser light ruling over the night was good. It was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the 4th day. All right. So this is the main area where the firmament is disputed, okay? So now, let's get to the core of this. And what I have found out is the scribes, okay, or the translators, took a Hebrew word, okay, and they replaced it with firmament, okay, and they used firmament when they shouldn't have used firmament, all right, because it means something firm, all right. Waters aren't firm, neither is vapor, okay. And so, if we look into the Strongs, it will refer us over to the Hebrew. If you look under firmament in the Strongs, it refers you over to the Hebrew. And it takes you over to the Hebrew word raqiya. All right, raqiya. And then the Strong says from 7554, from word 7554. There's the problem. All right. So they're taking the noun, they're taking raqiya, the noun, and somehow they're applying it to a verb. Raqa. The word 7554, and they shouldn't have done that. There's the problem right there. Okay? Because they didn't understand the homonym. Okay? Or the idioms. They didn't get it. But in this case, it was the homonym they didn't get. So Strong's shouldn't be saying that this word, raqiya, comes from 7554 as a root word, because they apply two different meanings. Raqa is a verb, and raqiya is a noun. So raqiya means prompt and expanse, a space, an expanse. Okay? The firmament, or visible arch of the sky. Firmament. The Hebrew called that a vault. Okay? The raqiya means that which is fixed and steadfast rather than that which is solid. See, rather than that which is solid. Okay, so it means fixed or steadfast. Basically, the mathematics. You know, the mathematics, the orbiting, the pattern, okay, that everything is in the universal laws, okay, is fixed, steadfast. They can't be broken. They're there forever. They're written there forever. They can't leave the pattern and the mathematics that was put into them at their design. They're stuck in that groove, can't come out, basically, okay? It says rather than that which is solid. So it's not solid. It is not talking about something solid. The firmament is not talking about solid. In other words, the atmosphere that surrounds the globe, okay, our atmosphere is there. It's steadfast and it's fixed. If not, we'd be all dead. Okay, but it's not saying it's solid. See, this is where it's the referring back over to the word raqa. Okay, it's sounding more of a something solid. That verb, and this doesn't mean that. It says it's not. It doesn't mean something that's solid. Rather, steadfast or fixed in place. You know, subject to universal law, mathematics. Okay, that's the big difference. That's the problem right there. Sometimes raqiya should have been used, or was used in the Hebrew, and should have been translated over differently than firmament of the Latin, because firmament means something solid and raqiya does not. It would more apply to water, vapor, the atmosphere, the rotation of the earth, you know, its orbit, stuff that just doesn't ever stop doing what it does. All right, evaporation, okay, a lot of different things, and that word is used not just in Genesis, it's used in other places in Scripture too, that implies to something like that. You can find that same word in other places throughout Scripture, man. None of it applies to something solid. Just in here in Genesis, where people try to make it, hook it up, because I think because of Strong's here, into the verb raqa. And that creates the issue. So anyway, the application to the heavenly bodies is simple and beautiful. They are not fickle and uncertain in their movements, but are regulated by a law that they cannot pass over. So they can't break out of the mathematics, out of the law or the pattern that they're in. It comes from raqa. Boom. See, problem. which means spread out. Yeah, in a way it means spread out. The firmament then is that which is spread out or stretched out, hence an expanse or space. Thus it is extended and fixed, or a fixed space. See that? The interplanetary spaces are measured out by Yahuwah, and though the stars are ever moving, they generally preserve fixed relative positions. Their movements are not erratical, not in straight lines, but in orbits. And thus, though ever changing, they are always the same. All right, so in other words, although they're moving, it's always in the same pattern. They never break that. That's what it's saying. Now, you see how they double talked on that? That was double talk. They said first they say it referring to something solid. Raqa comes from raqa, which means spread. Now they're saying it means spread out, and not something solid, but spread out, expanse or space. See that? So they're taking. Let's just read raqa. Word 7554. Watch this. To pound the earth as a sign of passion by an anal or a hammer or something. To expand it by hammering it hard, by applying to overlay with thin sheets of metal, spread, stamp, stretch, heat, made broad. And then it says, refers you back to 7549 for discussion on the firmament. So they're taking the part of the hammering something or stamping it, and it spreads out like a seal, wax seal, and you stamp it and it spreads out. It's taking that motion, the spreading out of hammering a piece of metal, block of metal, and beating it until it flattens out, or a stamp where you stamp it, it spreads out. They're taking that action and applying it over here to raqiya, which means expanse or space. The universe spread out, expanded. See that? So this is where the confusion's coming in. So this ain't talking about, because they used the Latin word firmament, which applies firm, something's firm, okay, instead of, they misinterpreted or translated the Hebrew word, okay, what they did. That's where the problem is. This raqiya, okay, does not mean raqa. All right, they're just taking the spreading out. They're saying that that's the root. They're taking you back over to that as the root because it means to spread out, expand it by hammering it. Well, in this case, you're not hammering nothing. Okay, it's just taking the spread out motion and applying it to the expanse or the space. All right, and so there's where a bad translation is, right there. And that's the whole problem right there, guys. I mean, it's pretty plain. It's a homonym, man. And they're strong shooting been referring you over there without a better explanation of that. I mean, it's kind of clear. They're only taking the spreading out motion of hammering something that starts off the size of a quarter and stamping, say, a wax seal and stamping it, and it spreads out the size of a $50. Well, that spreading out action is what they're using for the expanse or the space. And that's why they're referring back over to raqa. That's all. That's all it is. That's all it is. Nothing more than that, nothing less, man. It's just a play on words. That's what it is. So anyway, some people are obviously going to be offended, to this, and they might think about asking questions. And it's so obvious that some people might look at this and think that it's a joke, but it's not, because there's a lot of people that will be offended by this. They really believe this. All right. I don't think it's a salvation issue, really, but I can't see it anywhere as a salvation issue. But truth does matter, and since it is a truth will bring you closer into the way and to being the bride of Yahushua, because the bride is without blemish. So truth does matter, So it's not a joke. It's something that people really need to have a conversation about. And one thing that I've noticed is that everybody, especially the ones that are pro-flat earthers, show me proof, show me proof, show me proof, 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 show me proof, show me proof, show me proof, proof. No matter what you say, show me proof. And it's the atheists are the same way. A lot of the atheists or scientists, some scientists that are atheists, some are not, do the same thing. Show me proof, show me proof, show me proof, 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 show me proof, show me proof, show me proof, proof, proof. No matter what you show them, no matter what you say, no, it don't matter. They're going to say, you have no proof of that. Where's the proof? So it's just a dog chasing its tail. Around and around and around we go. Where it ends, nobody knows, because they won't accept anything. Everything, no matter what you give them as proof, they want you to prove that. Prove the proof. Prove that proof. Prove that proof. It just goes on and on without stopping. Well, that's not a very that's not a good way of having a conversation about anything, really. When are you going to stop and consider the proof that was given to you? At some point, you need to stop going around and around in a circle, okay, and take a look at the proof that you have been given, and quit asking for more proof. You haven't even digested the proof that was given. So it's kind of ridiculous, really, what I can tell. But a growing number of people seem to actually believe the earth is flat, though. And the question matters, is the earth round? Matters because if the scriptures and science both describe a spherical earth, then those who depart from these sources of knowledge are straying from reality. Fortunately, both sources often or offer clear descriptions of the real round earth. The scripture and science. They really do. Once I think I hope we have cleared up the homonym of the firmament, or the misinterpretation applying to it through the Strongs, which isn't a horrible thing. It's just a hard thing to try to understand unless somebody, I guess, points it out to you. But other than that, Isaiah 40:22 says the circle of the earth. And Proverbs 8:27 also references the earth's circularity. these match a spear-shaped earth. Okay? So if we go to Isaiah 40:22, it says, we'll go back up to 21. It says, did you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been declared to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the shamayim like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in, who brings princesses to naught, shall make the rulers of the earth as emptiness. So there you go. He stretches out the shamayim like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. Okay? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth. Above the circle of the earth. Right there, Isaiah 40:22. Can't miss that, folks. It's pretty plain. Okay, he who sits above the circle of the earth is Yahuwah. Metaphorically, Yahuwah's in everything, and everything is in him. But here plainly it says, he who sits above the circle of the earth. Circle is like this. It's not like this. And that's in Isaiah 40:22. If you want to read it yourself, go for it. And so Proverbs 8:27 says, when he prepared the shamayim, which is heavens, I was there. When he decreed a boundary on the face of the deep. Okay? So there you go. These descriptions match a ball-shaped earth. All right. Now, I'm going to take a small break, short break, and we'll get back and we'll finish this discussion here. And hopefully, some of us anyway, can come into agreement here based on common sense. Really. I mean, we were talking about everybody, especially the atheists or the flat earth society. They just love to say, show me proof. Where's the proof? Show me proof. Well, you know what? Sometimes common sense overrules proof. You know what I'm saying? If you have no proof, sometimes you got to look at common sense, which for some reason, if you ask me, a lot of people are lacking in that department nowadays. So common sense is huge. And if you have a good sense or a good ability to rely on your common sense, then I think this video here is going to should help in a lot of different ways. All right, so I'll be right back, and then we'll get back into it. Okay, I'm back. One flat earth proponent tried to persuade me that Psalms 104 verse 5, which says earth's foundations should not be moved, means that the earth cannot spin like a classroom globe because spinning is a type of movement. The Hebrew verb here for move is mat, meaning to be shaken, moved, or overthrown. A bicycle frame holds its wheels so that they will not shake back and forth, move from their mounts, or get thrown from the frame. Yet the wheels spin. This verse does not teach an utterly rigid earth. If it did, then we would have to deny earthquakes, hundreds of parallax measurements, mathematics, and scriptures like Job 9:6 and Job 38. Instead, it simply describes a stable earth. Earth's gyroscopic motion gives it the very stability that Psalms 104:5 is teaching. Another flat earth apologist, asked what he thought of the millions of pictures and videos of Earth's rounded surface taken from space since the 1960s, with dozens posted almost daily from the International Space Station. He asserted that NASA uses secret studios to concoct these photographs and Photoshop them, and that men never really reached the moon at all. But this would mean that all the astronauts and cosmonauts have lied about their experiences, as well as the thousands of men and women who've assisted them. How could they all manage to conceal the same lies for decades? It would mean billions of dollars spent on developing and manufacturing spacecraft, satellites, spacesuits, are all merely to fabricate and mask an ongoing lie. What are the odds of that, really? Observations from Yahuwah's world match descriptions in Yahuwah's word about Earth's sphericity. First, Earth as a giant ball explains why the tops of distant mountains or tall buildings come into view first as one approaches them. A rotating Earth explains prevailing winds too. For an example, the prevailing westerly winds lengthen airplane flight times when flying westward across the United States. Also, a spherical Earth explains the curved shape of Earth's shadow as it crawls across the moon during a lunar eclipse, no matter the moon's place in the sky. Fourth, no place on a flat disk Earth would conceal the North Star, which in actuality becomes invisible when you're in the southern hemisphere. For that matter, one notices a shift in star positions when traveling north or south, which also confirms a spherical Earth. Flat Earth arguments fall flat in the face of forceful scriptural and scientific evidence for Earth's roundness. I know that people aren't going to be convinced by that, but there's beyond science, beyond mathematics, beyond the International Space Station and all the satellites and everything that's been taking pictures of the Earth from totally out of our atmosphere and in our atmosphere on the edge of it, it's not going to be enough proof for them, because they're going to just say, oh, you can't prove that that's not real. It's like I said, they always go back to prove it. So, like I said, there are common sense measures here that we can look at. And we just did a few of them. I mean, anybody's ever seen a lunar eclipse, which I've seen a few of them, why is it always, even if it's especially a partial, you can see that curve like this. Okay, you can see it. The shadow of the earth is curved. There's no doubt in my mind. I've seen it on the face of the sun. Whether you believe the sun's inside of a dome, like the flat earthers, if you're not familiar with it, they think that the earth is flat, okay? And they think there was like a big stamp on a wax seal that was pushed down real hard. And when it did it, the outer edges popped up. So you're kind of like in a bowl almost, okay? And then across the top of that, of course, that's all ice around there. Now, over top of the stamped area, okay, there's a dome. So basically, they're saying that we live inside of a snow globe. You ever see them little toys that you take in there? There's a little bunch of little figures in there. You shake it up like that, and there's water in it. You shake it up. It looks like it's snowing inside there. That's basically what they're saying, that we live in a snow globe type deal. All right. And this is all coming from the word firmament being applied incorrectly, especially in Genesis. But anyways, let's go over a few more ways to know that the earth is unequivocally and absolutely, positively not flat. Okay? So let's just take a look at some of these common sense approaches. A couple scientific there with the moon. Okay, the moon. Humanity knows quite positively that the moon is not a piece of cheese. Okay, or a playful angel. Okay, the phenomena that occupying it from its monthly cycles to lunar eclipses are well explained. It was quite a mystery to the ancient Greeks, though, and in their quest for knowledge, they come up with a few insightful observations that helped humanity figure out the shape of our planet. Aristotle, who made quite a lot of observations about the spherical nature of the earth, noticed that during a lunar eclipses, when the earth's orbit places it directly between the sun and the moon, creating a shadow in the process, the shadow on the moon's surface is round. This shadow is the planet's, Earth's, and it's a great clue about the ball shape of the earth. The lunar eclipse, sequential view of the lunar eclipse that occurred on April 15, 2014, you can see Earth's shadow crossing the face of the moon, and the shadow shape is curved because Earth is a sphere. Since the Earth is rotating, the consistent oval shadow it produces in each and every lunar eclipse proves that the earth is not only round, but spherical. Absolutely, utterly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is not flat. The only way a flat earth could do that, cast that kind of a shadow on the moon or the sun, would be if it was this way. Okay, so here's the moon. The flat Earth. Okay, what they say is up here, and they're always rotating. So how can there even be an eclipse if that's true? Okay, because it's like here's a flashlight and here's a little flashlight, and they constantly are chasing each other in a circle inside to that dome. How could there even be an eclipse in that case? There couldn't be, really, if you think about it. But if the moon was here, so my fist of the moon, and the flat Earth is here, like they're saying, the only way that you could get a flat Earth, and if it's a square like they claim, or just say it's like a saucer, and you take that saucer and you set it up, move it up here, then you would get that. That's how you'd have to do it. You'd have to set that saucer up here. You know, about the only way you could do it unless the moon came down here or something. But if it's flat, it can't be up here like this. It has to be laying flat. They say it goes around like this, and the moon and they chase each other like that. Makes no sense. That's common sense right there. Tells me, ain't no way, no way, man. So number 2 are ships and the horizon. If you've been next to a port or just strolled down the beach and stared off into the horizon over the ocean, you might have noticed a very interesting phenomenon. When approaching ships do not just appear out of the horizon like they would if the world was flat. You would just see them coming, the whole ship. But rather, they seem to emerge from beneath the sea. So it's when they come, you just see the tip of the mast. It looks like they're coming from up out of the water, to the up until they get close enough to where you can see them. See what I mean? So if it was a flat Earth, that wouldn't be happening. But you say that ships do not submerge and rise up again as they approach our view. The reason ships appear as if they emerge from the waves is because the world is not flat, it's round. Okay. Imagine an ant walking along the surface of an orange or a basketball or something into your field of view. If you look at the orange head on, you will see the ant's body slowly rising up from the horizon because of the curvature of the orange. If you want to do the experiment with the ant approaching along a long road rather than a round object, the effect would change. The ant would slowly materialize into view, depending on how sharp your vision is, of course. So, varying star constellations. The observation was originally made by Aristotle, who declared the Earth was round, judging from a different constellations one sees while moving away from the equator. So on a round planet, stargazing on a round planet, after returning from a trip to Egypt, Aristotle noticed there are stars seen in Egypt and Cyprus, which are not seen in the northerly regions. This phenomenon can only be explained if humans were viewing the stars from a round surface. Aristotle continued, claiming that the sphere of the earth is of no great size, for otherwise the effect of so slight a change of place would not be quickly apparent. The farther you go from the equator, the farther the known constellations go towards the horizon, to be replaced by different stars. This would not have happened if the world is flat. Then you got shadows and sticks. If you stick a stick in the ground, it will produce a shadow. The shadow moves as time passes, which is the principle for ancient shadow clocks. If the world had been flat, then two sticks in different locations would produce the same shadow. So imagine the sun's rays hitting two sticks some distance apart. If the earth were flat, the resulting shadows would be the same length, no matter how far apart you place the sticks. But they don't do that. This is because the earth is round and not flat. Eratosthenes used this principle to calculate the circumference of the Earth quite accurately. To see this demonstrated, you can Google his experiment, the experiment of Eratosthenes, and the circumference of the Earth. Just Google it. But standing on a flat plateau, seeing farther from higher. There's another one. So standing on a flat plateau, you look ahead toward the horizon. You strain your eyes, then take out your favorite binoculars and stare through them as far as your eyes can see. Next, climb up to the closest tree or barn or something. The higher the better. Just be careful not to drop those binoculars and break your lenses. Then look again. Strain your eyes and stare through the binoculars out to the horizon. The higher you climb, the farther you will see. Usually we tend to relate this to earthly obstacles, like the fact that we have houses or other trees obstructing our vision on the ground. And climbing upwards, we have a clear view. But that's not the true reason. Even if you stood on a completely clear plateau with no obstacles between you and the horizon, you would see much farther from the greater height than you would on the ground. This phenomenon is caused by the curvature of the Earth as well. It would not happen if the Earth was flat. Okay, how about riding in an airplane? I've done that a lot. I've had a lot of airplane flights, 30,000 feet. If you ever taken a trip out of the country, which I have, specifically long-distance trips across the ocean, you could notice two interesting facts about planes and the Earth. Number one, the planes can travel in a relatively straight line for a long, very long time and not fall off any edges. They can also circle the Earth without stopping. If you look out the window, number two, if you look out the window on a transatlantic flight, you can, most of the times, see the curvature of the Earth on the horizon. The best view of the curvature used to be in the Concorde, but that plane's long gone. We wait to see the new pictures from the new plane by Virgin Galactic. The horizon should look absolutely curved, and it actually is from a distance, as it actually is from a distance. I've been up in many planes, and at times, especially when you're going across that ocean and it's really, really flat, you can see the curve. You can see the curve of the Earth. You don't have to make a rocket and blow yourself up and kill yourself. Just go buy yourself a plane ticket and go up 30,000 feet and take a look for yourself across the ocean or across the flatlands. You see what I'm talking about. And how about looking at the other planets, the moon and the stars? I mean, aren't they circular? Yes, they are. You look at the naked eye and see a lot of circles up there. If you have a decent telescope, you can see a whole lot more circles up there. The Earth is different from other planets. That much is true. After all, we have life here, and we haven't found any other planets with life. However, there are certain characteristics all planets have, and it will be quite logical to assume that if all planets behave a certain way or show certain characteristics, specifically if those planets are in different places or were created under different circumstances, of our planet is the same. In other words, if so many planets that were created in different locations and under different circumstances show the same property, it's likely that our own planet has the same property as well. All of our observations show that other planets are round or spherical. And since we know how they are created, it's also obvious why they take this shape. Unless we have a very good reason to think otherwise, which we don't, our planet is very likely the same as the planets we're observing in outer space. And in 1610, Galileo observed the moons of Jupiter rotating around the planet. He described them as small planets orbiting a larger planet, a description that was very difficult for the Circe to accept, as it challenged a geocentric model where everything was supposed to revolve around the Earth. This observation also showed that the planets, Jupiter, Neptune, and later Venus was observed too, are all spherical and all orbit the sun. A flat planet, ours or any other planet, would be such an incredible observation that it would pretty much go against everything we know about how planets form and behave. It would not only change everything we know about planet formation, but also about star formation. Our sun would have to behave quite differently to accommodate the flat Earth theory. What we know of speeds and movements in space, like planets' orbits and the effects of gravity. In short, we don't just suspect that our planet is spherical, we know it is. Number 8, the existence of time zones. The time in New York at the moment these words are being said is 6 hours different than from where I'm at. The sun is in the middle of the sky, though it's hard to see with the current cloud coverage. In Beijing, it's 12 hours later, or approximately midnight, and the sun is nowhere to be found. In Australia, it is 1:30 a.m., more than 13 hours ahead. There the sunset is long gone, so much so that the sun will soon rise up again at the beginning of a new day. This can only be explained if the world is round, rotating around its own axis. At a certain point when the sun is shining on one part of the earth, the opposite side is dark and vice versa. That allows for time differences and time zones, specifically ones that are larger than 12 hours. Another point concerning time zones, the sun and earth, is if the sun was a spotlight, very directly located so that light only shines on a specific location, and the world was flat, we would see the sun even if it didn't shine on top of us. As you can see in the drawing below or on the board, similarly, you can see the light coming out of the spotlight on the stage in the theater, even though you, the crowd, are sitting in the dark. The only way to create two distinctly separated time zones where there is complete darkness in one while there's light in the other is if the world is round or spherical. All right, so if the world was just totally flat and that sun was going around like a flashlight like they claim it does, okay, then we should be able to see it way over there. We should be able to see that sun shining way over there, even though it's dark over here. Just like sitting in the theater and the stage is lit, but you're sitting in the dark. And gravity, which the flat earthers love to argue that there is no such thing as gravity. But the pull of gravity is an interesting fact about mass. Okay, here's an interesting fact about mass. It attracts things to it. The force of attraction or gravity between two objects depends on their mass and the distance between them. Simply said, gravity will pull toward the center of mass of the objects. To find the center of mass, you have to examine the object. So if we consider a sphere, since a sphere has a consistent shape, no matter where on it you stand, you have exactly the same amount of sphere under you. Imagine the walking ant going around on a crystal ball. From the insect's point of view, the only indication of movement would be the fact that the ant is moving its feet. The shape of the surface would not change at all. A sphere's center of mass is in the center of the sphere, which means gravity will pull anything on the surface of the sphere straight down toward the center of the sphere. This will occur no matter where on the sphere the object is located. Consider a flat plane, if you will. The center of mass of a flat plane is in its center. So the force of gravity will pull anything on the surface toward the middle of the plane. That means that if you stand on the edge of the plane, gravity will be pulling you sideways toward the plane's middle, not straight down like you usually experience when you stand on the earth. Even the Australians in Australia, and an apple falls, even in Australia, an apple falls downwards, not sideways. But if you have your doubts, I urge you to try dropping something. Just make sure it's nothing that can break or hurt you. For further reading about the center of mass and distribution of mass, just Google it. Go on your pew and Google it. Center of mass and the distribution of mass. And if you are brave enough to handle some equations, you can learn more about Newton's law of universal gravitation by Googling that. Okay, and we'll reiterate images from space. Now, in the past 60 years of space exploration, we've launched satellites, probes, and people into space. Some of them got back, some of them still float through the solar system and almost beyond it now. And many transmit amazing images to our receivers on Earth. In all of these photos, the Earth is, wait for it, a sphere. The curvature of the Earth is also visible in the many photos snapped by astronauts almost daily aboard the International Space Station. You can go on the internet and see recent examples from the International Space Station taken by Commander Scott Kelly, and you can go on his Instagram, and he's got pictures posted on there as well of the Earth and in daytime and at nighttime. So, and it's pretty obvious, you can see all the countries and everything. It's pretty amazing stuff. So, you know what they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So, go on there and Google it. Pictures taken from the International Space Station at night of the Earth or in daytime of the Earth. Check them out. There's thousands of them on there. They can't all be false. Hard to believe that. This leads us to a little deal I want to read here to you. And I know a lot of people I've talked to have said nobody's been up into space because if they shoot a rocket up in there, it hits the dome, the firmament, the solid firmament, the globe, if you will, and explodes. They've even got photos of disasters, some of the launches of the astronauts that something went wrong and they blew up, and they claimed that's evidence of that they hit the dome, and that's what blew up the rocket, you know. But you know, so the question I googled was, so how many people have gone to space? And I feel that's a good question, to contemplate. How many people have actually gone to space? And it came up and said, astronaut wings are given to people who have gone 60 miles above the Earth's surface. The International Space Station is about 250 miles away. Space is defined as being 60 miles above the surface. So anytime you're above that, you're in space. Since the inception of the space program, about 550 people have traveled into space. Slightly less than 2/3 have been Americans. The vast majority were astronauts with at least 2 years of training, but there have also been a handful of space tourists between 2001 and 2009. Some scientists, engineers, and politicians, as well as a half dozen or so Air Force pilots. There have been Air Force pilots that have flown their high-performance rocket planes above that altitude. So even though they didn't fly for NASA, they got their astronaut wings. Since the sixth and final moon landing in 1972, astronauts have not left the Earth's orbit. Only 12 people have walked on the moon. Of the 7 billion people on the Earth, that's it. 12 have walked on the moon. Following the Apollo missions, there were 135 shuttle missions into space until that program ended in 2011. Now, astronauts only head into space to connect to or with the International Space Station, usually by riding along with the Russians. The next mission in the works is to explore the space between the Earth and the Moon. Following that is a trip to Mars, which is likely about 15 years away. Some commercial trips have been planned, which would be very short visits for a lot of money, but none of those have taken off as yet. And here's some of the pictures that I got off of the website that I thought were extremely interesting, taken from the International Space Station. By the way, are all the people and all the astronauts in all the countries lying? It's hard to believe that, but check this one out. I'd say that it looks like it's a spear. A spear. Here's one at night. See that blue haze right there? That must be the atmosphere. That looks like Italy to me. At nighttime, Italy. It's nighttime. It looks like Europe to me. Spain. Europa. Himalayas. On the Alps. That's what that is. These are the Alps. See them? The Alps. From space. Looks round to me. Here's another nighttime shot. What is that? Persian Gulf, perhaps? I think so. No? Well, maybe. There's Italy and Sicily. See how round that is? That shows, definitely looks round. Doesn't look flat. Kind of interesting here because you don't see any stars in here, do you? Notice that? No stars. Could that be from the flash of the camera, perhaps, that they're taking? Could be. Here's another one that does have stars in it, though. Looks like the moon may be reflecting off of there, behind the planet there, reflecting off of something. See the stars? It's another thing, you know. They say the flat earthers say the flat earth with the dome over it, the snow dome, the glass dome, that the sun, the moon, and all the stars, all the birds, all the airplanes, and everything is flying under the dome, right? And the sun and the moon is rotating. Like these erasers, here's the sun, this one's the moon, right? They'd be going like this. I can't even do it. Let's do it this way. Okay, so the sun's here, the moon's here, right? Shining down on the earth as they're doing this. Inside the dome. And the birds are all flying in here. The airplanes are flying around in here. The clouds are in here. Kind of odd because it looks like to me, unless it's an optical illusion, that the moon is quite a bit bigger than them stars, and it looks like those stars are way out there, way farther up than the moon is, to me. It looks like way up there. Now, I can't say about that about the moon. It looks like the sun is farther away than the moon, you know, I'm saying observing with my eyeballs. Looks like the sun is farther away than the moon. But them stars, they look like they're way out there to me. They don't look like they're right there, right around the moon, and little tiny things. They're saying the stars are real small, the sun's real small, the moon's a lot smaller than they say it is. You know, and that's going around inside this globe. Well, and them stars must be way, way up there at the very top of the dome. It must be real teeny tiny then, you know, if that's the case. But I don't know. I don't think so. This one here was taken from the International Space Station by astronaut Samantha Cristoforeita. She snapped this while being this a woman up there. Man, that's obviously round there, man. You know what I mean? That one's obviously round. I don't. This one here, let's see which one. I think it's this one. This one here of Italy. I think that was taken by astronaut Commander Scott Kelly. You know, he stayed up there for a year, I believe it was, wasn't it? Maybe over a year. A long time. He was up there for a long time. Took thousands of pictures, man. You know. So there you go. That's my take on everything that I've studied and read and talked to people on both sides of the argument about. And it's just, to me, I have to go along with the Earth is curved because of all the things we just talked about. Common sense tells me that. The Ruach HaKodesh is pretty much leading me to the fact that it's round. Okay, that's the most important thing. I feel it in my Ruach, and when I think the world's flat, the Ruach, I can tell, is rejecting that. It's just not going over well within me, within my spirit. So, but like I said, you know, research that. You know. The words, the raqa and the raqiya and raqa and the firmament and all that. Yeah, they should have chosen different words in some of those, and they didn't apply to. So that's why people are thinking that applies to something that's solid, and it doesn't. All right. So thank you for watching. I hope this clears up some stuff for somebody. And it's not. I didn't do this to offend anybody. Didn't do this to take sides. I'm just relating to you what I've come to understand by studying, reading, and just speaking with people and praying, and this is what I've come up with. I believe the world is round, and I believe the Sabbath is from evening to evening. I don't think the nighttime is separated from the daytime in our reality, because of what I just told you earlier. It's the lesser light, greater light and the lesser light, to rule the day and to rule the night. That's one full day period. So one period, if you want to. So it's one phase. All right. Evening and the morning was the first day. If you want to put the morning before the evening, that's fine. If you want to put the evening before the morning, that's fine. But they're both the same thing. You got to put them both together to come up with that full period. You can't take the evening from the morning and have a full day. 7 days makes 1 week. It's just a figure of speech. It has nothing to do with, there's no darkness in Yahuwah, or the Yahusha said there was only 12 hours in a day. Oh yeah, 12 hours in a day is correct. Most people sleep at night, but not everybody does. A lot of people stay up and work at nighttime during the lesser light. There were guards on the watchtowers watching, making sure no army was sneaking up there to attack everybody while they were sleeping. The high priest the priest in the temple had things to do during the night hours, the night watch. You want to call it watch, don't matter. Just all words, just a matter of word, that's all. Figures of speech, man. There's 365 days in a year. Does that mean we throw out the 12 hours of nighttime? Then there would only be half of that. See what I'm saying? It's just a figure of speech. It's the way we speak. We don't say there's 7 days and 7 nights in 1 week. We say there's 7 days in 1 week. Just a figure of speech. Don't get all excited about it. It's ridiculous. And like I said, the nighttime isn't darkness. It's not total darkness or the abyss. It's not the outer darkness. It's the same day with a lesser light nights being ruled by a lesser light, the moon and the stars. That's all. Still light in them. Not as much light as in the daylight hours when the sun's ruling over the day. But nevertheless, there's still light in the darkness in the nighttime hours. Still has light in them. See what I'm saying? So the greater light and the lesser light together make that time period complete. 1 day. All right? We don't say 1 day and 1 night makes up 2 days. No. We just mix up 1 day. 30 days makes up 1 month. We don't say 15 days and 15 nights make up 30 days, because that would only be 15 days. So I'm saying it's just figures of speech, man. But anyway, thank you for watching, and hopefully this helps you. So long. Bonus feature time. All right. Yeah, as I was doing my research and stuff on this, I run across a bunch of pictures. Tons and tons and tons of them. And these are the 3 that I enjoyed the most. But you can, like I said, you can get on there and do your own research. But this one here was kind of like a description of like the old days. Okay, back in basically, this is in conjunction with, say, the way some of the Hebrew people thought the earth was back in their day. Okay, not all the Hebrews thought this, but I'm saying some did. Everybody used to think the world was flat at one time, right? Until they did start traveling by boat around the planet, right? So anyway, basically, it would be a piece of a rectangle. You ever hear the heavens will be like a scroll, rolled up like a scroll, and shaken, rolled up like a scroll and shaken. That's why it's in a rectangle shape, like a scroll would be. And basically, this is the perimeter of creation. The outside of this perimeter is the outer darkness. All around here, where there's nothing, just outer darkness. Waters above the firmament would be up this and up in here. This archway right here would be the firmament, or the glass dome. Okay, and there's windows. Okay, so this is waters above the firmament, this glass dome. Here's the windows going through here. There's the windows that were opened to allow the flood of the waters that are up here to come down through the firmament and flood the earth in the days of Noah. Of course, the sun, the moon, and the stars, the clouds, the birds, the airplanes. This is the mountains and the flat earth with the seas in it. Okay, and it's all basically on a foundation, and beneath that are waters and dry land. It's called Sheol, which can only be inhabited by dead people. Sheol. And then below Sheol is the great deep, and which is also a mixture of land or solids and water, called the great deep. And then beyond the great deep, or beyond this border, the scroll, is the outer darkness. All right, so I thought that was interesting. And then over here on this one, this is more like would be more of like a description that the flat earthers kind of project. And this would be that there's foundations. The red here is the foundation. Is the foundation that the flat earth sets on. And these are the columns. It's sitting on columns. Okay, and then at the end, here's the firmament, or the dome, the glass dome, round dome above the flat earth. And here again, the stars and the moon. Notice that the sun, the clouds, the airplanes, and the birds are all flying in here, right? In which they say then that this would be the face of the firmament. Okay, so everything is beneath the face of the inside part here of the firmament would be the face of the firmament on the inside. And all this is the birds fly in the face of the firmament. So in this situation then, it seems like to me a plane or a rocket or birds or the clouds even should be able to go up here in front of the moon and stars and the sun, or even behind them, or even get up above them in this situation, don't you think? Of course, here are the windows, which are heaven, which were opened, and then the waters above the firmament that surround the total firmament up here, and this top part would be the waters above the firmament, which was let through. Some believe there was this was is no longer there because it was flooded down in here, and it all sank down into and created the great deep, down into the great deep underneath the flat earth, and now all the water's down in here. But some don't believe that. Science has kind of debunked that through mathematics, by the way. In other words, if you had water protecting us, the sun from coming through, and that's why everybody lived longer, that would just, I think it was 15 feet, just 15 feet thick would double the atmospheric pressure on our bodies, which is 14.7 now. So it would roughly be 30 pounds per square inch. And it would also increase the temperature on the planet up to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So very unlikely through mathematics that occurred. Unless it was above the firmament rather than below the firmament. You know, and it may have been because he opened up the windows and let the water come down and flood it, and it all went down here. I'm just saying, this is what they're saying. At least the guys I was talking to is how they kind of explained it. But this up above here now, above the waters above the firmament is the heaven of heavens, and here's a door or the gate that leads in the center here, that leads up into the heaven of heavens, or the third heaven where Yahuwah reigns. It's where Yahuwah is, they say. And then, of course, all around here, around this would be nothing. This would just be the outer darkness, when that would be the abyss. The abyss, or the outer darkness, where the demons were afraid to be cast off into. All right. And same over here. Anything outside of this rectangle would have been the abyss, or the outer darkness, that the demons didn't want Yahushua to throw them or cast them into, the outer darkness. All right. And here's Sheol. This is where only the dead can go. And then there's tunnels, if you will, or portholes leading from the flat earth on different places down in the Sheol. That's where all the dead people go to. All right, so that's what they're saying. Now, the one I found that I agreed with, what I believe was more along the lines of truth, was by a man, and I can't remember what his name is to give him the credit for this, but I kind of liked his perspective on this, and this is how he sees it. And this is based on Scripture, what's written in Scripture. And the more I read it, and the more I looked at this example, the more I agreed with it. I said, I think he's right. So this is the one that I found out of many. I feel he's probably right. And in this scenario, here's the planet Earth. It's round, okay? And on the face of the firmament, or the expanse, this is our atmosphere. On the inside of our atmosphere is where the birds and the planes and the clouds are, okay? They fly in the face of the firmament, it says. The birds, when he created them, to fly in the face of the firmament. So it's underneath the inner edge here of our atmosphere. That's where the birds, the clouds, and the birds, the clouds, and the airplanes are. Okay? The circle here is the earth. So if we take the earth out, see, then in the sky, there we go. That red, that right there would be the face of the firmament. Okay, so then this would be the firmament. All right. And basically the outer part of our atmosphere. The inner part's the face of the firmament. The outer part of the firmament is our atmosphere, top and bottom of our atmosphere. Okay? The expanse, the firmament, that's the firmament. The expanse, okay, is, or the raqa, is the earth. And the waters are separated on the earth, right? The waters are on the earth, and under the earth, in the earth, and on the earth. Waters separated, right? The waters from the waters. So the waters on the earth, in the earth, around the earth, whatever you want to say. Okay? And then the firmament, the atmosphere. Outside the atmosphere, you have the great expanse and outer space. So you have, here's your stars and your sun and your moon. Okay? And the face of the firmament, or our atmosphere here, the face of our atmosphere, or the firmament, is the first heaven, spoken about in Scripture, okay? The expanse outside of our atmosphere to here is the second heaven, outer space. Space, outer space. This is not raqa. This is raqiya. All right, it's not firmament, it's raqiya. Okay? And then this blue, big blue circle is the waters above the expanse. Above. So outside of the very edges of space is a water vapor. It could be vapor, because being out there where there's nothing there, it's void, probably a vacuum, then water would be in vapor form. Water can be vapor or solid, liquid, right? Solid, liquid, or vapor. So it could be ice out here. I mean, I don't know the math. I didn't look into that. But it could be vapor. Highly unlikely it's liquid, water. So it's probably vapor, could be ice, okay? But it surrounds this entire creation. Is that too hard to believe? Do you believe Yahuwah created everything out of nothing? If he did, then you could easily believe this. This would be the waters above the expanse, outer space. Then outside of this circle is the outer darkness, or the abyss. Everything outside of that water circle, that vapor there on the very edge of the outer space, would be outer darkness, or the abyss, where the demons didn't want to go to. Okay, so everything above this then would be the third heaven. Be a hole up in here, we say. The gate, or the door up in here, the third heaven. All right? So first heaven, second heaven, third heaven, out of that water above the expanse. Earth with water below. So the water on the earth, and in the earth, and below the soil, on top of the soil, on the mountains, everything on the earth is the waters below the firmament. And this up here is the waters above the expanse. Firmament is solid. That would be the raqa, right? Solid. Raqiya is not solid. That's where the big problem comes in. You can't say all this is firmament. You know, that's the way that they interpret it. Everything's firmament. It's not. Not all this is firm at all. It's not firm. You can't use that word. See? That's where the homonym comes in. That's where they made the mistake. This is not all firm. The raqa is the plan, the earth, the land, and the rocks, yeah. And the water, No. I mean, you could say it is, but really it's water, you know. And the atmosphere, it's not raqa either. And neither is this. This is the shamayim. Okay, shamayim. The star, the moon, the sun, the stars are raqa, you know. And this water vapor up here, the water's above, probably vapor. That's not raqa. That's raqiya. See what I'm saying? So I believe that this is probably a really good thing. But in reality, what we know is Yahuwah is in all things, and all things are in Yahuwah. Yahuwah is the life giver. He's the very breath that you take. So yeah, that's the one I like, and I think that's probably more along the lines of the truth. I just feel that in the Ruach is kind of give me that. So that's what I believe. That's what I'm going with. So I hope that helps everybody, and thank you all for watching. And remember to stay in love with Yahushua HaMashiach. So long, Nazarene, beloved of Yahuwah.
Living water, Baruch haba Bashem Yahuwah.